예, 안녕하세요. 1세션의 좌장을 맡은 이민화입니다. 오늘 1세션의 주제는 이제 4차 산업혁명을 맞아서 세계 각국의 트렌드는 어떻고 또 지식재산에 대한 전략은 어떤가에 대해서 미국, 또 일본, 중국의 사례를 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 우선 첫 번째로 유진청 미국 UCLA 대학 교수님부터 우리가 초빙해서 말씀을 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 다 같이 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
안녕하세요. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm coming from UCLA and more specifically from Los Angeles. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the U.S. intellectual property framework. In the United States, you can get copyrights, which allow you to protect creative expressions. So for example, if you write a book or if you come up with a cool design, you can get a copyright on that. You can also protect your intellectual property through trademarks, okay? And trademark is something that identifies your source of goods or services, and that's a trademark. And you could also protect your intellectual property through trade secrets. Okay, and this is something you keep secret to yourself as a company, and you don't tell the public. And lastly, probably the most interesting is the United States patent system. And what that allows you to do is you can exchange your private information and you apply for a patent application and you could get rights in the United States for your patent. Okay, and it has to be useful, novel, and non-obvious. Those are just the requirements for it. So what exactly is a U.S. patent right? A lot of people don't know this, but a U.S. patent right is actually an exclusionary right. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're allowed to practice your invention. What it means is that you can exclude others from practicing your patent rights. Okay? And I can answer questions on that later, but it allows you to exclude but not necessarily to practice. Okay? Now, what is the foundational policy of U.S. patent law? The U.S. patent law system is a system that wants you to tell the public what you know. And in exchange for telling the public what you know, you'll get a right through a patent to exclude other people, okay? And that is the foundational policy of US patent rights. They don't want you, the government would prefer that you tell everybody your new information, the new things that you've developed, and by doing that, other people in the public can use that and build on top of it, okay? So you got to kind of think about it. From the very beginning, the government wanted everyone to present what they know and not keep it as a secret. Okay. Now, the U.S. law is based on statutes that were created by Congress, and 35 U.S.C. 101 is the U.S. statute that is the basis of your fundamental patent rights. And it's very simple and broad. It says whoever invents or discovers anything new and useful, process, machine, manufacture, composition of matter, or improvements of those will be entitled to a patent. Okay? Now, it's very short, but at the same time, okay, it's very broad because this is trying to include almost everything. And the U.S. Supreme Court which interprets the law that's created by Congress, has said that it could include anything under the sun made by man. Okay. Now you get a feel for how expansive the U.S. patent law is trying to be. So when we're here at this conference today and we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and we're discussing the different new technologies coming out. Okay, so what's new? What's coming out? Okay, what is the next big technological breakthroughs? And if you really think about it, I think it's a mix of internet with everything else, right? It's a mix of computing with everything else. So as computing gets stronger, faster, okay, more connected, okay, it's allowed to be paired with other technologies. And we all know biotechnology, okay, so if you have a new machine, you have AI, you have robots, okay, that's biotechnology, nanotechnology, nanocomputing, small scale, nanoscale technology, so that would include that. Different types of materials, the Internet of Things, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard more recently, the Internet of Things is pairing almost anything to the internet. So for example, your chair could be connected to the internet, okay? And it could know you when you sit down, right? Your car is connected to the internet. You can pair anything to the internet. And once you do that, you create a system and you create a world where everything is talking to each other. So, I mean, that's just the Internet of Things, okay? And just various other technologies that are coming out. So the question really is, how is the US preparing for these things, right? That's the underlying question. And I think when I thought about this, my answer and my thoughts are the US is already there, okay? And the reason for that is because our system is so expansive. And the original intent of our IP system was to allow anyone to invent and get patent rights for it, okay? So it isn't necessarily that there are new laws or new things that are changing, but that as these technologies are developing, they're being included in the expansive system that's already in the United States. And when you think about the different technologies, what you're really asking yourself is it patentable, okay? That's the real question. And in the United States, the way the courts and Congress thinks about that is it just asks if it's patent eligible. Okay? Subject matter eligible. And that's just the statute that we just talked about in 101. And it asks, does the invention that's in your patent, okay, does it fall under the statute of 101? Okay? And these were the things that were in 101, process, machine, manufacture, and a composition of matter. And I mean, my argument to you is that anything that's in the fourth industrial revolution is going to fall under this framework, and it will be patentable, right? It will be patentable. Now, there's one U.S. Case law that really pushed this to the edge, and it's called Alice Corp. And the question there was, okay, if everything is patentable, what is not patentable, right? And in Alice Corp, the courts decided that pure software may not be patentable, okay? So if it's just a software that's running on a system and it's just changing data around, then that might not be patentable, okay? So it's interesting that the line got drawn when it was pure software, okay? Okay, but as we go into the fourth industrial revolution, as we discussed, it's not just pure software. It's a mix of the software and the different technologies. And I mean, I think my argument there is that in the US, that is going to be patentable. Okay, so I want to step back a little bit to give you a little bit of an idea of how would the U.S. know if your invention is patentable or not. And the Supreme Court provided a two-step analysis. Okay, and the first step says you look at the claims, and if it's directed to an abstract idea, okay. Now, if what's in your claim is directed to an abstract idea, then it may not be patentable. Okay, so that's the first question that Alice would ask. Okay, now if the answer to that is no, then it probably is patentable. All right. But if the answer to that is yes, then they go to the second step. And in the second step, the judges decide whether it's directed to an improvement on a specific area of technology besides the abstract idea. Okay, so what that means is if in the first step, the court decided that the patent claim is to an abstract idea, which generally is software, the second step is they will ask you if that patent claim improves on another technology, okay? A hardware technology, some other technology. And if the answer to that is yes, then you may still have patentable subject matter. Okay. So the US IP policy in the current generation and in the fourth industrial revolution, I mean, my argument would be that it's maintaining the existing IP framework. Okay, so the framework that's in the United States now is not going to be changed. It's going to be, the framework will stay the same. Okay, and the question is that going to be expansive enough to include all the new technologies? The US policy is going to continue to be towards full disclosure. So if you apply for a patent application, okay, you have to disclose everything in that application. You can't keep anything secret, okay? And that's a policy that's going to stay in effect. The US IP system is generally robust and inclusive. And there will be few limitations, if any, on new technologies. Because everything's going to fall under USPTO 101. And all of the things will get handled through the USPTO and the court system. All right, thank you.
Thank you. 4차 산업혁명 시대에서 굉장히 중요한 주제 중에 하나가 이제 융합 제품과 서비스에 대한 특허가 어떻게 될 것인가. 이 문제에 대해서 우리 유진정 박사님께서 원래 코리안 아메리칸입니다. Can you speak some Korean?
안녕하세요.
예, 이 정도 할 수 있습니다.
저기 한국말을 잘 못해도요. 거기 한국에서 태어나서 미국 가서 공부하고 미국에서 이제 Korean American 있죠. 근데 한국 와서 조금이라도 한국말 조금 할 수 있으니까는 고맙고 엄마 아빠가 조금 가르쳐 줬으니까 고맙습니다. 근데 저 한국말이 좀 이상하니까는 사람들이 딱 말하면 벌써 금방 알죠. 미국에서 온 사람인다고. 네.
자, 그래서 함부로 욕을 하시면 안 됩니다. 네. 그 4차 산업혁명의 이 소위 혼합 경제로 진행하면서 생기는 제일 큰 문제가 어디까지가 특허의 범위고 어디까지가 특허의 범위를 벗어날 것이냐. 거기에 대해서 2014년도 미국 대법원의 결정사항, 굉장히 중요한 결정사항이고 아마 저희들이 굉장히 참조해야 될 것이 왜 수많은 기업들이 이제는 순수 소프트웨어에서 하드웨어와 소프트웨어가 결합한 형태로 진화하고 있는가, 거기에 대한 해답도 될 걸로 보고 있습니다. Okay, next turn. Professor Motohashi from Tokyo University. He will discuss about the combination of platform economy and intellectual property. Please.
안녕하세요. I'm not a Korean Japanese, so I don't know any Korean words outside this. But thanks for organizer to invite me to give a talk. So I'm an economist. So maybe Professor Chong is a lawyer. Maybe I can give you some complementary view on IP policy challenge in Industry 4.0. Okay, so maybe I think I just try to start with what is Industry 4.0. And so this chart is showing you about composition of world GDP by country in the world. And if you can look at the left hand one, which is 1700, 18th century, long time ago, you can see that China and India, they have about half of GDP in the world. And when in the middle chart, which is about 30 to 40 years ago, you can see US and also Japan and some Korea. So it's gaining, and China, India kind of lost. But when you can look at the right-hand side, which is the most recent one, so China and India is coming back. And so developed countries, including Japan, Korea, is kind of shrinking at this time. So what is happening over there? And so when you actually divided this chart by population, so this is per capita GDP. So at some point, of course, the higher this, very high level of per capita GDP, something like more than $40,000 per person. So this, country can be classified as a developed country. So OECD, basically, economy. So including Korea, Japan. And so, but the timing when the country move in is very different. And for example, of course, US and Spain, so they are actually kind of take off first out of the group. And then Japan follows. I think basically Japanese, this, taking off is happened in the middle of 19th century, so 18 something, which is called Meiji Restoration. And Korea is coming basically, after that. And recently China and India. So it's kind of converging. So first it's diverged in terms of the wealth of nations and converging at this moment. So underlining, mechanism of this kind of change in the economy. So I actually kind of classified three, types. So before, taking off. So taking off is basically industrial revolution. So which is industry 1.0 talking about, and also 2 and 3. I put them together in the 1, 2, 3 into this industrial economy. So basically, before industrial revolution happened, so most of the powers and technologies just based on a human being. So which means that the kind of labor size, land size, determine the GDP size. So which you can see, you can saw at the picture of the 1700. China, India has the largest share. But when industrial revolution happened, because the volume and the quality of the one person can do to put some value added become to be very, very high. So then actually there are some differences in terms of per capita GDP. And the divergence in terms of the level is just a matter of when this industrial revolution happened. And so why now they are converging? Okay, so this is the point. So you see science economy, it's basically this is 21st century. So this is what I actually call it for Industry 4.0. And so what is different? Maybe I can show you. So why? Okay, basically, so industrial economy is basically products is important. And but science economy, because the production technology, machine and whatever, is kind of commoditized because everybody can do it. So for example, like when you look at photovoltaic, power, cells, solar cells, now it's so-called turnkey system is introduced. So some Chinese company invest in this kind of machinery very much. So actually they are actually caught up with the companies in Japan, Germany, Korea, and then they can produce a huge amount of this kind of things already. So product itself is really difficult to sustain their competitiveness. So what is the next things for the developed countries worry about is I would call science-based. But the science is something like a very natural science. It's very technical. But when you look at the footnote, you can see the footnote at the bottom of this chart. So IT applications, this is where Industry 4.0 comes. For example, artificial intelligence, IoT. So those kind of things can connect the products each other very much. So how to connect and how to build up business model out of this. So this is a very important thing. So when you really worry about in a Industry 4.0 era. So this is something like because my actually expertise is so innovation management. I like to try to illustrate the innovation patterns in industrial economy and the science economy. So industrial economy is basically you try to produce good products. Automotive company, Toyota, Hyundai Motors, try to come up with a good automotive and sell it to the users. That's it. Samsung produce smartphones and distribute it very nicely to meet the customer needs. So this is what the industrial economy era. So Industry 1.0 to 3.0 era. So this is basically product innovation and process innovation are very important. But when the science economy era comes, or Industry 4.0 is coming, so those products, goods are connected, interconnected. So all the products has their IP, and so it's not an intellectual property, but it's kind of internet protocol, and then they can be connected to each other, and so Google is putting pretty much their resources in autonomous driving, and so if once this happen, what will be happen? Maybe automotive product itself it can be commoditized. So that's why automotive companies, I know that Toyota Motors should be in Hyundai Motors too. They put lots of resources to try to develop new kind of autonomous driving technology. So product itself cannot be is kind of the power of the economy or value added itself, but how to connect and how to build up the business model out of this is basically the new style of this Industry 4.0 or science economy era, as I termed. Okay, so IP policy have to build on this kind of movement. So I like to try to, first of all, try to give you some general idea of the direction of the policy. So I'm not talking about just IP, your patent system, copyright, trademarks, but this is more like an innovation policy. You have to treat IP policy as one of the integral parts as an innovation policy. So this is my key point. And one is, so open innovation is very important. If this is an era of products, if Toyota wants to produce good products, maybe they can do it by themselves. They have a deep pocket, they have lots of R&D, they have skills, labors, whatever, international channels, maybe Hyundai Motors too. So they are competing each other in the world market. But the automotive products are connected to each other. Only, not only automotive company could come up with their business model. Of course, there are, there are some communication technologies important because each automotive have their places and communicating to each other to avoid any collision by their, it's kind of way that what the autonomous driving is working, right? So in this case, not only automotive products, but information systems, communication systems, sensors, whatever AI protocols. So all of these things are very important. So not only one company is able to come up with their business model in this world. So this is called so-called ecosystem. So ecosystem is the various kind of species in the world, living species in the world, actually live, it's kind of complementary relationship to live each other. It's kind of give and take relationship. But when I put this kind of analogy to the business world, so there are various kind of companies. Maybe universities is one of the ecosystem, but basically companies, they have to collaborate each other to come up with new business models in a connected world. So in this sense, IP policy have to integrate it with other economic policy, such as competition policy and standardization policy. I will tell you a little bit more later. And so next things is, of course, the physical products. Of course, automotive product is very, very expensive, and still, automotive company can get a lot of profit out of this. But in a long, kind of the framework, I think even automotive company have to worry about this, commoditizing the product itself. So value of products become less and less, and value of data or information becoming more and more important. So this is the kind of next things. So I'll tell you that so here, because product development, you have a long range R&D, you have a strong IP by yourself, build on these things, you try to produce good products. So this is something like kind of well, focused approach in a long term. But this information, if this change to industry IoT, industry 4.0 era, then so all the things can connect, and then so that those kind of development have to become to be faster and faster. So which is called a so-called sandbox approach. So you need a lot of experiment instead of forecasting, and then try to find out so good IoT projects. So this is very important. So how IP system you facilitate those kind of sandbox approach. So this is another important things. And which related point is my third point. So which is quick and adaptive. So market friendly again, and also market friendly. So which leads to some actually implications to maybe a dispute settlement system. There are in a IP world, there are lots of infringement is going on at this moment. They are fighting in the court, but of course this is formal system. But ADR, so which is alternative dissolution, dispute resolution system, which is more faster because formal court system take long time. So this may not be useful. I mean, it is useful, of course, at the end. It's very fundamental system which required in a modern society. But I would say that the more quick and adaptive dissolution system is also important. So something like we may be better to develop some ADR, alternative dispute resolution system. So this is the 3 points. And when I actually moving into more detail, I just try to give you some concept of ecosystem. I try to explain already about some ecosystem and platform. So in IoT, again, or Industry 4.0, all the products, Internet of Things, make things to be connected. So in this case, not only independent products or something, but they are actually sort of product services are integrated. So here maybe sometime like an ecosystem way, which is in a left-hand side chart. So ecosystem there are a variety of customers, but inside the ecosystem there are a company which is playing a keystone, and also there are lots of niche players, which try to make this system in a variety, dynamic, and more appropriate to meet the customer needs. So keystone and niche player is kind of bilateral collaboration. You see the arrows is two-way here, And so right-hand side is something like a platform system. So this is a iOS platform, Android platform, those are the things. Is a platform leader there. And then platform users, apps, maybe mobile apps, players, use this one. Then consumer can benefit out of this kind of system. So platform is very flat. And ecosystem is more like, more organic things. And two types of these things will emerge. So this is what's happening in the world, in Industry 4.0 era. Okay. So one of the kind of specific points, I now come to the IP. I'm sorry to have a long introduction, but which is very important for you to understand what I try to talk at the end. So one is so patents. Of course, patents and trade secrets. Of course, there are intellectual property rights, including patents, utility models, copyrights, trademarks. But there are also trade secret, which is a secret. So company don't want to file those kind of IP. And so firm have always, individual firm has always have their portfolio. So not all the invention they are patented. Of course, some of the invention they want to keep their secret as a trade secret. And so not only this, individual firms, the technology portfolio, but the patents or trade secret in an ecosystem is very important. So why you file patent or not? Okay, whether you patent or ecosystem, the trade secret is not something like just by your company, but you have to consider the tool to create some ecosystem. So patents is basically, I think I would say that they are more used to create your friends. Okay, but patent is exclusive rights, as Professor Chong talked about. But another aspect of the patents is because technology are protected, so it would be easier for you to transfer this kind of technology to others. Of course, you have to have some license fee. If you have only for the trade secret, I think, of course, there are some licensing agreement for the trade secret, but it's really difficult for you to enforce this trade secret to be, used your counterpart without, your intended kind of way, right? So as soon as your technology released, you have to worry about, because this technology itself is not patented. It's not kind of property rights by yourself. So patent system, they can use something like a patent commons. So patent commons is a pool of the patents. And then sometimes, for example, like a Toyota released all their fuel cell technology patents and used for their suppliers freely. So why they have patents and used by them for freely? Because they want to have some group. They want to have their ecosystem, right? But of course, the firm have to have their profit agency. So where their profit is coming from? So profit is coming from these trade secret parts in many cases. So you have a friend, and you have some very specific technology for make the products to be available in the market. Then you can get you're able to have some competitive advantage over to your competitor. So the policy implications is coordination of IP policy and competition policy. Because if there are some company which have the too strong power by this kind of technology portfolio, maybe a fair trade commission have to intervene in this kind of market. So good balance of exclusivity of this technology portfolio, patent system and competition system. So this is very important from social viewpoint, policy viewpoint. And second thing is something like emerging platforms. And so maybe you may know that it's kind of standard essential patents in a de jure standard are regulated. There are land condition, reasonable and non-discriminatory contract, license you have to do. But there are no such kind of regulation for de jure standard. So you have to come up with some guideline, maybe. But of course, this have to be market friendly. So this is not something like a very strict, kind of rigid legal regulation, but also something like a guideline, the soft way to implement for all the players in this ecosystem can apply. So this is second point. And third point is, I already talked to you. So ADR system, in terms of infringement settlement, is not only relying on the formal court system, but you may have better to have some alternative system. This is my last slide. And so at this moment, so Japanese government, I don't know whether you know or not, so government produce every year. They have a IP strategic program. And you can download actually all this program every year. So I pick up one slide out of this program. And so what it is, I think you don't have to read all the material over here, but there are some dotted line in a like horizontal line, right? And the above part is a data, and the dotted line below is a technology. Okay, so technology, and the left-hand side is some information managed as a trade secret, and right-hand side is managed as not managed as a secret, which is mean you put it in an IP system. So technology bottom side, so trade secret can be managed by trade secret law, and if you don't want to have a trade secret, you want to get your property rights, then you apply for the patents. Okay, and but there are no data. Is you can, if you keep it as a secret, then you can protect by sort of trade secret law, but there are no system for the data to be protected. And protection is again important because once you protect it, it's easier for this data to be shared with others. And data can be used for not only for you, but for others, which makes some economic rent, right? So those parts, how to arrange some IP system here, is one of the discussions going on in government of Japan. Okay, so that's all my talk, and thank you for your listening.
Thank you, 프로페서 모토하시. 예, 우리 모토하시 교수님께서 굉장히 중요한 몇 가지 말씀을 주셨죠. 4차 산업혁명에서 이 IP의 개념 자체가 경쟁과 협력 구조로 바뀌고, 특히 플랫폼 이코노미가 지금 새로운 시대를 열어가면서 여기에 따르는 많은 문제들이 새롭게 도출되고 있습니다. 특히 데이터에 대해서 과연 우리가 앞으로 어떻게 접근할 것이냐, 굉장히 어려운 문제죠. 이따가 많은 질문들을 부탁드리겠습니다. 자, next turn is Professor Wang. I expect she'll explain about the strategy of China's manufacturing 2025 and IP strategy. Please.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share my research, and I look forward to your input and discussion after my presentation. This morning, Professor Zhang has already given the briefing for Industry 4.0, the principle in China. I would like to give you some key objectives and also the policy support in case study, how China is aiming to improve their technology from a big country to become a powerful countries. Of course, Industry 4.0 was initially raised by the German Prime Minister, hoping Germany can lead the world again. But however, it's so competitive because in Industry 4.0, they including the small manufacturing, services, IoTs, everything's new business model. So the existing competence, the manpower, inexpensive manpower in China is no longer a very good advantage. Therefore, China has implemented many regulation policies. For example, they have 6 directions, and they would like to expand in 5 leading engineering projects. As you can see in this, the first 5 class, they would like to have the innovation center, industry, infrastructure, fortifying, intellectual management, green manufacturers, and also innovation with high-end products. And they would like to have some trial centers because they already have 65 trial centers in 25 provinces. Because China is a big country, they need to have some role models. So the domestic governments, they give enormous support. Their IP, domestic IP offices, research institutes, even central government give many fundings. They also would like to have good manufacturer environment because they know the green manufacture, environmental protection is very important because a lot of foreigners, when they go to Shanghai, go to Beijing, they can't stop coughing. Well, so the air pollution, they need to be, that this situation need to be resolved. And they give a lot of tax exemptions, benefits, innovation fundraisings, effective cost down policy support to the enterprises. And finally, they would like to support Chinese company go international. So they have the One Belt, One Road policies, which is very powerful. In these slides, I'm aware my PPT has too many wording. That's for your take-home to study. I will only pick up the messages. So, the special projects, they also noticed service manufacture is very important. For example, we used to know the elevator, heavy metal manufacturers are very good in Germany, but if the company, they don't go on internet, if the Chinese company have some software and they just plug in your elevator, later on all the service, the maintenance, even the replacement will go to Chinese company. The German company's business will gone. So service management is very important. Automation is also important because Foxconn only launched 4 robot factories, already cut down 500,000 workers. And later on in 10 years, there will be more and more robot factories, and we can imagine, currently they hire about 1.5 million China workers. I can imagine in 5 years' time, they're probably only 100,000. This is just a very drastic situation. For the promotion concept, Professor Zhang already mentioned in the morning, but they have very specific indicators. They make every province compare each other. They set up the indicators, factors, and review every year. And every province compare each other on the invention abilities, quality, impact, production, digitalization, and green environment. And they identify what is the small manufacturing they want and where would be the good child centers, for example, in Shenzhen. And they're hoping in 2025, they could lower down operational cost 20%, production research cycle 20%, defect rate lower than 10%, and they hope energy saving up for, they set every indicators, and they will force every province, every domestic company to fulfill the plan. It's the will of the Chinese government. For this automation, and I think the China government, they support the industry to buy into Industry 4.0. I will show you the cases later. For the current situation, you can see there are many robots in China already, but in average, it's very low. Congratulations, Korea is the #1, but you have to maintain the competence. So you can see China set up the standard for 2020, 2025, 2030, how many machines they should have, the market share, and the domestic brand, how much they should have, and how many big brand they should produce. And they will, for example, you can use Google in China, right? So WeChat become the #1. You can use, this Facebook, you can use Facebook, so that we have WeChat, we have QQ. You can use Google, so we have Baidu. So we can imagine there will be more and more giant companies emerge from China in every industry, and they have the budget support. So in 2025, they would like to have China brand of robot over domestic market 70%, and they want the key parts over 80%. I think the key parts is quite drastic impact for foreign company because many leading company, they have the core competence on the parts. China, they have to, if we look at this, currently 7% of the robots, 7% of the key parts are imported overseas. So this is the situation China would like to improve. And they have the reimbursement policy. I think Europe, American do not like it very much because they can give the reimbursement rate up to 50 to 30%. And this kind of situation already kill solar cell industry because the product manufactured in China sold to Europe is only 89% of German production cost. Therefore, the German Prime Minister stopped the reimbursement for solar industry in Germany, and they crushed all the whole solar industry. Not only for the reimbursement on the purchase of the price, they have the tax exemption, and they also have domestic government support. They have central government support. Domestic government are very eager to support domestic company to get the grant from the central government, because the grant from the central government will contribute certain percentage, become the tax to the domestic government. So the fund capital gain is very popular in China. I will give you the LED cases. It's very famous for the past 2 years, because 2 years ago, there's a drastic news that Gold Scale Capital, they successfully acquired 80% of Philips Luminet share. And LED, there are 5 major players. There's Toyota Goshi, Japanese, American Cree, German Osram, and Dutch Philips. Then this, of course, in 2 years' time, CFI US interfered this bill this year, so it failed. But Chinese sent another company, Fujian Grand Chip, tried to acquire Acetron. German government approved, but finally withdrew the permission in 10 hours. So the Chinese company has no time to counter-react. And the third company was sent to acquire Osram. It's San'an, is the leading LED company in Xiamen. Of course, they were stopped by German economy minister, but finally, Osram Relevance was sold to Chinese consortium. It was this February, successfully also approved by Americans. So they already stepped in the leading 5 in LED industry. For Industry 4.0, that covers small manufacture, digital production, cloud computing, information security, big data, integration, administration, everything. So VR technology, sensor, AI, small manufacturing, IoT service, it's a brand new business model. So but I think Chinese are aware intelligence management is the most important. IP is the key. So the new pattern profiling has moved to a new direction. It's a kind of new business model. You don't just file the technology. You don't just file the device. You don't just file the parts. You file including the maintenance alert to reduce operation cost, or you file a monitor including monitoring and production maintenance, lower down the maintenance fee. And you have the big data statistics analysis to change the new business model. For example, the airplane company, they no longer sell the engine, they sell the mileage. So they cover your maintenance, your emergency, your everything. So they also sell the airline company. They don't have to hire technical people. They just rely on those engine producer. They will take care of everything. We will give another case in 3D printing. It's also very important in this Industry 4.0. Normally, we have the 3D printing designed by computer, and then we transfer this design into the STI file, and then we have the production plan also in digital form, and then you may email to any place in the world, so they could at home or at the manufacturer, any places, they could layer them out vertically and planary, and finally make the product. But what I would like to say is that China has already acquired Lexmark by PAG Capital. It's not only this 3D printing company, this buying also means the freedom to operate. If you look at Lexmark, how many patents in US? So if you remember, when Xiaomi entered US market, they face a lot of litigation. They enter Indian market, they face a lot of litigation. So they buy Lexmark, they clear up the patent issues, have a lot of negotiating, bargaining power in the business, in the market. However, of course, there are countermeasures, complaints from the rest of the world. So there may be regional protections, there will be aroused complaints. But however, for example, the industry, they have to help themselves. Siemens, they acquire material solution, try to reinforce their competence in 3D printing. French TGV and German ICE also alliance together, try to defend China CRRC. But the business scale, even including Canadian railway, is still much smaller than the Chinese railway. GE, they acquired XLM, and also Acron tried to take the leading position in 3D printing. Intel also acquired Ascending Technologies. There are over 80 deals in this field ongoing only in these 2 years. When we look at the Simon's patent profile, we can learn a great deal, so you can analyze. We have all kinds of analysis through the modern tools. I just show you this one, so this is just briefly where they allocated, but there are more of the analysis. You can use all kinds of modern tools. What I would like to mention is the robot market. We know the leading the family wear company, Mei-Hsin, they acquired KUKA. KUKA is the leading for robot company. The Japanese, they have, this is a German company, and also have ABB from Swiss, and we have a Japan, Fanuc, and also Kawasaki. So I have this pattern profile just for you get a flavor what they're trying to do. And then China came, they also acquired Pirelli. It's the very famous tire company. The Fries Cross Murphy, this is the military machine manufacturer company. He also acquired EEW. This is some energy generation company. He also acquired Syngenta. Syngenta is the leading transgenic company because even full supply has their farming in industry 4.0. So they have ready for all these leading industries. So this is the company, leading robot companies. They, as I mentioned, there are over 80 major merger acquisition already. But however, if they want to undergo this merger acquisition, they have to pass the anti-monopoly, anti-competition review in every country. So the global harmonization and the law regulation policy is very important. And international relationship is also important because you can notice previously China company aiming American company, but after the former US President Obama have a lot of interference on many major cases. Now they move to Germany, but Germany Prime Minister also facing a lot of the pressure, but however, they still give up many good companies to China. This is the KUKA. If you compare these four leading robot company, KUKA is the only one Chinese company can acquire because Japanese company will not sell to China company. You can see that this is their international classification. These four leading companies, they have their specialties and the robot industry. So I just, you can see them after this conference. Then there comes the questions. Will those emerging IoT company win in the game, or the traditional heavy manufacturer companies will win? It's not only in robotic industry, also in smart vehicle too. Because Google acquired many companies, but later on they saw some of the companies, for example, Boston Dynamics, which they couldn't find any commercial application because they used to design the robots for NASA, going to the moon, going to the Mars. However, it's not good for families use. Okay, so where Google play a part in automation, and then we go to these small vehicles. Congratulations again, Hyundai is among the leaders. So we have identified, actually this is a research by Taiwanese government. We are a very small place with limited resources, so they require university and our industry bureaus. We have to help our company to find out the niche. So in this case, we have a vision-based sensor fusion application. And with this, we find out their application, for example, parking, driving, collision, or a lot of functions. We find out where is the competence, where are the competitors, based on the application with the leading company, or based on the technology, or based on the product-wise. So we have different kind of a mix, and we tell our domestic company how to develop their product design around where is the niche. And I will give an example. Samsung phone have the wireless charging from 7, right? 7 or 8. I think from 7 already have the wireless charge. But before the wireless charging was launched, there are already 3 alliance, 3 standards. So you can have the electronic transmission, conducting, microwave, different mechanisms have different standards. You know, the MediaTek used to be the leading chip design company, but now after Avango emerged, LSI and Broadcom, it became the second two. And the bad news is Avango tried to acquire Qualcomm. That was happening in these 2 days. So for small company, actually we can't say small, is the leading, used to be the leading company in Taiwan. And the MediaTek, they designed the chips that could fulfill different standards. So if you don't have a key competence, core technologies, you design application surrounding, so you can get cross licensing. So this is what we did, and I'm also aware China government, domestic government, research institute, and there are many IP offices. They're helping their companies as well, because I work closely with many domestic government in China. They're doing this as well. And then when Uber get a role in small vehicles, hard to say because it sells only 80,000 cars, but its market value is much better than general vehicles. So it's hard to say. But I would bet on the traditional manufacturers. If you look at BMW, you look at their patent profiling, Ford, Audi, or Hyundai. But if you look in the Japanese company, you find out they file huge amount of patents, almost 10 times of a European company. And then you look into Hyundai, it's again the same, almost a similar situation as a Japanese company. But I would say in old days, we were encouraged, just like China, we encourage companies to file tons of the patent. But later on, we found out it's become an enormous, huge cost and difficult to manage. So now the modern technology, later on I will show you, it played a part. So for the lane departing, you see Samsung is number 1, surprise. And then you always, when you do this technology analysis, you find out a lot of funding is out of your imagination. You can't just get new information from the newspaper or from the website or somewhere. You really have to look into the technology, the pattern filing, those things to see where your competitor could be. And for this lane keeping, you see the Hyundai did very well, I would say, although Hyundai did very well. And also the patent quality. So I think patent quality, the citation number is also very high, so that's good. But it's the recent years, Hyundai performed very, very well. This parallel parking assistant, there will be Japanese company. Parking system, that's the leading player, a Japanese company. Longitudinal or lateral control, there will be European company. So every country have their competencies. For ADC, adaptive cruise control, that's Japanese company. So dealing with the IP issues becoming very important because they are not only your major operating competitor, you also have many MPE of these patent trolls. So you can see the small vehicle already have tons of litigation in everywhere. But I would like to show you some skills. I guess Hyundai learned from the past and reached the current status because if you look at this sad story, in 2002, this troll, Pace, is in Marion. He used just 3 patents and they sued Hyundai for 28 million US. And it's not the only case because one of my friends sued Hyundai and he gets 33 million US. So that means the old patent wasn't very good, but the new patent, as we can see the citation number, everything that get improved. And we can learn from the US company because this troll, they sue Ford. Similar patent, but Ford filed 25 petitions for inter-party review. Till date, there are many remain. So this troll was badly damaged. But they think of the other way. They file ITC complaint to stop European company. So legal measures become the standard company management to protect your business, protect your competency. For 3D printing, again, litigation everywhere, but what I would like to share with you is this case, the digital trend after clean correct versus ITC. Because at the beginning, this elegant used 7 patents to sue clearance correct. Can you imagine where it's from? It's from Pakistan. This Pakistan company have the US branch. Elegant sued them for violate their patent because they are using digital data, sending your tooth text data, modeling, treating method through email or whatever to US. And the ITC granted the injunction. And then finally, this clearance correct complaint appealed to CFC. And CFC reversed the case back to ITC, request them to re-examine the case because there is an argument. In old days, if you want to file to ITC, it must be a physical device or product. But however, this transmission is only digital data. There's no device, there's no hard drive, there's nothing. So how could it qualify to be the subject matter? If this situation change, we're not waiting for the US Supreme Court decisions. So they will impact every company when they manage their Industry 4.0 production because you could have parts manufactured anywhere and then just combine them all together. So litigation everywhere, even Industry 4.0. But I would recommend one tool because they have some new function and it's free. And I did it, we use that for research. Although I also use other, you see other charts there by different tools. This tool is created by Taiwanese. Why I recommend this one? Because when you use the European or US searching tool, difficult to find a China patent, but there are tons of China patent. They file patent 1 million cases every year. So if China is an inevitable market, if you want to file a patent, you better check it carefully. So use this Taiwanese tool, it will be easily to search. I did compare that you use other tool, you will lose a lot of patent analysis. So you can check, and they have the function, one click, so you can download all the patent profile during the prosecution. It's good for you to file new patent, good for you to do the litigation, good for you to do the design around. It's also helping the patent office to reduce their heavy workload. It's free until end of this December, so you can try. They have I know like Honghai, when they try to acquire shop or Foxconn or Toshiba, they use a lot. So it's the patent crawl. You can have any chart and just put it in and try to compare, search the whole world pattern and try to make your intellectual property more secure. In old days, whatever you done, you research, you file patent, but now you need to know the market and you need to know the competition. If you don't have a key competence, you need to surround them. So if you don't even can have the surrounding patent, application patent, you need to think about cross-licensing, merger, acquisition, capital gain. So nowadays, business is very competitive. Industry 4.0 automation will change the world. So according to the forecast by BCG, you can see we expecting there will be 30% labor cost down in Korea, in Japan 20%. But this statistics is for your reference, but we know if we don't catch up, we may lose our job or lose our business. So Industry 4.0 plus automation with IoT services, they change the world. But however, the legal measures, the policy compliance also matters. International harmonization is also important. That's how today we have experts from different countries. We can learn from each other and see how to deal with the global issues. If you want to have more detail of those cases, my book will be soon published, and this one already published. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Wang. 혹시 청중들 분 중에서 지금 발표한 슬라이드가 몇 장이나 되는지 추측되시는 분 계세요? 70장 가까운 슬라이드입니다. 그래서 이 주어진 시간 내에 할 수 없을 것 같아서 제가 25분을 드렸는데 시간에서 1분 남기고 끝내셨습니다. You made magic. 예, 지금 중국의 제조 2025를 소개하면서 이것이 단순한 제조가 아니라 여기에서는 지식이 부과된 제조, 서비스와 부과되는 제조, 그리고 IP가 중심이 되는 제조, 이와 같은 새로운 중국의 제조 2025에 IP 확보를 위해서 굉장히 중요한 전략적 툴 중에 하나가 IP를 목적으로 하는 M&A, 그리고 다양한 형태의 M&A가 지금 사례로 제시됐고, 또 마지막으로 굉장히 좋은 보너스이죠. 여러 형태의 로봇과 자율주행차에 대한 특허 분석까지 제공해 주셨습니다. 자, 20분 만에 우리가 마친 내용입니다. 다시 한번 우리 프로페서 왕께 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 그러면 지금부터 토론에 들어갑니다. 전반적으로 오늘 나온 세 분의 얘기는 다 공통점이 있는 것 같아요. 4차 산업혁명에서 나타나는 큰 특징은 이제는 하드웨어와 소프트웨어와 데이터 또 인공지능이 융합하고 있다. 다른 측면에서 보면은 제조와 서비스가 융합하고 있다. 이에 따라서 우리 특허 전략도 새로운 패러다임에 돌입이 필요하다. 이런 것이 현재 세 분의 공통된 얘기인 것 같습니다. Everybody, do you agree? 오케이. 자, 그래서 그 플로어에서 사전에 질문을 받은 공통 질문 하나를 제가 드리겠습니다. 삼성 디스플레이의 김규성님이 보내온 질문입니다. 이제 인공지능이 핵심 역할을 하는 경우에 특허 소유를 공익과 부의 관점에서 국가와 소유하거나 오픈소스화하는 등 특허 소유 관련 정책의 새로운 흐름에 대한 의견을 부탁드립니다. 자, about this question, I wanted to ask you to everybody. Would you please make some comment?
The software patent in every jurisdiction have different rules. For American, they approve the software. In China, it's something like patent, that copyright. In Germany, they would prefer to be software embedded on the device. So I would say that harmonization and the discussion is very important. And in US, after the Alice case, software patent is no more that powerful. But however, I'm not aware of Korean patent law, but for Germany, they try to get, they are more free and more accept, they are more like to protect the software patents. So I think I would encourage the most protections on the software, because although it's some intelligence mindset converted into the computer calculation, but it does serve the human effort. It does increase the efficiency. So it doesn't qualify the primary goal of perhaps innovation, but however, they have the commercial needs and improvement. That's my comment. Sorry.
As far as my understanding, the most of the algorithm itself on the AI, like deep learning, is kind of available in the market, not market, in a kind of public domain. For example, like we have some, basically, for example, I'm coming from engineering school of University of Tokyo, so many PhD students in our department are not only Japanese, we have lots of Chinese students. They are actually using like a Python, open source, it's kind of program to their, I think, so of course, there are some development in algorithm itself, but for this one is basically, I think, pretty much open. And also, I think you have to notice that there are famous story of AlphaGo, which beat Korean chess, not chess, Chinese chess Go champion, right? So I think these kind of things are also published in Nature. So this is something like a science which is available in the market. And what is proprietary is a data. So data, because the deep learning, the machine learning system, you need the data to train. And this makes a big difference. So, abstract data itself cannot be patented. Of course, there are some practical use. You can make some patent. So maybe I think there are some point you have to at this moment, because I don't see a good intellectual property rights to protect your data set. So that's why all the company have the data set as a trade secret. So which means that they are not, there are competitive advantage. So they are not willing to release to other company, but that will reduce the actually social welfare. Of course, privately it's okay, but if you combine various kind of big data, then you'll be able to come up with a very efficient, system. So here, maybe patent is because only for those which is practical use, you can be patented, but only data cannot be patented. Maybe copyright could be, because software patent, before software patented, copyright will be used for this one. But copyright is just an expression, so maybe you have to, so this is the point which I showed at my last slides, which is discussion is going on in Japan.
In the United States, software generally, you cannot patent software. So if you're talking about AI, the software behind it, it's very hard to get a patent on just the software. And some companies have tried to copyright, but copyright is very specific to the individual lines of code. So you can't really protect your data set. And in that sense, I think trade secrets would probably be the best. But in the United States, the way I think a lot of companies can protect AI is the functionality. So when you're pairing the software with something very specific. So if the AI has to do with car management or lane assistance, those are functionalities that you're gonna want a robust patent system to protect. But the individual code and the code line, I mean, at least in the US, it's very hard to protect that. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to not make it open. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to have that open source if it's a baseline for people to build on. But at least in the US, the patent system encourages people to disclose the functionalities so that others can build on top of it.
Okay, Professor Chung. His question is not how to protect the patent. No, it is not the second question, it is first question. Yeah. In addition to his questions, Mr. Kim wanted to know about how to share the patent, not to protect the patent. In case of United States, there is a movement about the free patent movement. Can you explain something about the free patent movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elon Musk is probably the most famous for opening up his patents and allowing companies to use them freely. And the idea behind that is you develop a culture where people are developing on top of the invention that your company's doing. And by doing that, other companies can build and build. And I think the idea would be that if you're a big player in the industry, it's to your advantage for that technology to become commonplace and to develop in the society. And a free patent system encourages that. So, I mean, it does make a lot of sense to do it. But as you guys know, in the United States, that's very rare. Most people do not open up their patents. Typically, you're going to have to cross-license. The threat of a lawsuit is so severe that what companies do is patent protection is not just for yourself, but it's for defense. So it's offense and defense. So if you're getting sued, if Samsung's getting sued by Apple, typically they're trying to cross-license. They're trying to figure out ways where you get some of mine and I get some of yours. And I don't know if that's the best way to encourage development of technology, but at least in a very litigious setting, that's the way it kind of works.
Thank you very much. Second question to Professor Motohashi. Yeah. you have a big interest about data, and data becomes the most important part of fourth industrial revolution. But how about the utilization of personal data? In case of Japan, Prime Minister Abe have changed the policy about utilization of personal data. What is your opinion? Personal data. Yeah.
Personal data.
Yeah. Utilize to establish big data for the fourth industrial revolution, we need to utilize the personal data. Yeah.
Of course, there are lots of hurdles. You're talking about maybe privacy issue.
Yeah.
It's
Related with the
personal
privacy.
data.
Yeah.
So this is because okay. So before getting to the IP, when the company construct a big size of data set based on the personal information like names, age, or whatever, income. So you have to. So traditional Japanese privacy law request basically the company to have agree with each individual people to use for this kind of data, but which is really difficult to construct this kind of things. So Japanese government did some legislative reform in terms of the privacy law, and so which allow for, of course there are some certain conditions. We have to get some government certificate, and in this case you can waive those kind of privacy law restriction, and also there are some idea for the data bank, and so which is more like a third party. Maybe they don't claim their intellectual property rights in itself, but you have to buy this one. So they try to gather some information for those kind of bank to ensure so data distribution.
Thank you. To Professor Wang, I'll explain you about one question from Mr. No, 나노 미래생활. 여기 와 계세요, 노영원 씨? Yeah. 자, about his question. His question is, China is now becoming #1 patent issue country in the world. And now China have adopted the additive punishment systems for the patent litigation. He wanted to ask when Korean enterprise can get the royalty from Chinese company in the future.
You mean if you have the patent, you would like to enforce in China, Korean patent?
Yeah.
Of course, you need to. You also need to apply your patent in China. But that's my observation, because China now have IP court in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing. They are very high qualified judges. There are many fair judgment. Of course, I think many people, they worry if you go to domestic court or to the second tier cities, it would be difficult to get the justice. But I was invited to US in June. They asked me the same question, and I did some search. You want to know whether you will be fairly treated in China, I guess that's the question. If you are a company like Facebook or Apple getting more political, then it will be, of course, quite sometimes justice will be compromised. But if you are, I would say, I also noticed there are many famous companies from Europe, but they are not as big as direct competitor to Chinese leading company that always get the fair judgment. So and when I was in Berlin, I also heard a lot of complaint. It's not only Korean audience will complain. European also complain. But I think the problem is you don't find the proper representative, or you don't have full prior preparation, because you don't go to China without filing any trademark, without filing any patents, and you expect they will protect you. And when you go to the court, you must follow in their administration procedure, because we have our honorable former judge here. A lot of the evidence submitted by foreigners, they don't go for the notary. They don't have a sufficient details or support. You feel you are bullied or you are not unfairly treated. It's only because you don't speak Mandarin, you probably don't have full trust or communication with your representative in China. I think if the foreigner come to Korean, they share the same view. Because you don't, if you are Korean, you know this place well, you well educated, you well prepare everything, so you go to call, you go to any IP office, you feel everything is easy. But when you go to a new company, new country, you may have the, I think, unbalanced information. They will cause you unfair feelings. But I would say you have to just do, have you think, no, you just have think those Korean company, Japanese company, they file so many patents. Even you are the startup, you have to well prepare. You don't wait until you may become the superstar, you all have the potential, then you find out you missing this part, missing that part of intellectual property protection, and then you expect to get it fair in China. It's difficult. But China is making progress because I've been come and go in China almost 15 years, and I observed the improvement. And they are the people with sense of honor. I'm pretty proud, because though I'm from Taiwan, I'm not a Chinese, but it's a big population. You can see the progress from the first tier city to the second tier city, gradually to most part of China. But of course, if you go to the rural area, it's difficult to get the justice. I understand yeah. I hope this answers his questions. But find a qualified firm or representative, because there's funny things in Europe. When I was in Berlin, there's a company, he complains that his firm representative in China asked him to broiler jobs. Never do that. If any your patent attorney or your firm asks you to do something inequitable conduct, just never do it. When I was in India, if you go India, you share the same feelings, because I teach in India every winter. And there's one time my professor, my colleague asked me, Mei-Hsin, when your patent will be approved? I said, oh, I'm still pending. Then he said, why don't you pay to the offices? No, we don't do the bribery. So the situation at the developing country at the beginning is always not very satisfactory, but it's getting better, not only in China, but in India too.
Okay, thank you. Next question is to Professor Chung. Yeah. I will not translate. 한국 특허 전략개발원의 손승철 님이 하는 질문입니다. Question from Mr. Son in Patent Strategy Development Agency. 4차 산업혁명 관련 다양한 비즈니스 모델과 서비스가 개발되는데 이에 대한 법적 제도적 보호는 대단히 미흡하다고 생각합니다. 현재 미국에서는 이에 대한 대비를 어떻게 준비하고 있는지 궁금합니다. Yeah, first part. A lot of business model and the service are developing related with the fourth industrial revolution, but the legal protection and the regulatory protection is quite below the expectation. What will be the future preparation of United States?
I think I would kind of disagree that the U.S. is not prepared, because I think the U.S. system is actually very robust. It can handle a lot of different technologies. And I think what happens is people think that the US is not really thinking about it, because when you look at the laws that are being passed through Congress, there isn't anything specific as to very specific technologies. So you're not hearing about, is the US getting ready for it? But the way that I see the patent system is it's just open, and it allows all the different technologies to apply. And in that way, maybe by luck, maybe by the way the US system is set up, it doesn't have to react to the new technologies. I think maybe software was the only one that really got people scared, because they didn't want to open the floodgates to letting people have exclusivity to software patents. But in terms of the other technologies in the fourth revolution, Internet of Things, biotechnology. Those are things that are actually being processed by the USPTO now, and they're being handled by the US patent system. So, yeah.
Okay. Professor Motohashi, you mentioned that Toyota have shared their patent about hydrogen automobiles. Do you think that kind of sharing patent will be public in the future or not?
So I think this is related to your question to Professor Chong in terms of patent commons on Linux.
Patent commons.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, because for example, like maybe as far as I know, so patent commons in Linux is so IBM is a major player who has their own patents in Linux, but they let them use for the users for free. But because IBM is doing the business, another layer. So I think what they're doing is try to come up with some ecosystem, and basically what Toyota is doing is almost similar type of approach, because fuel cell car is very small in the market. Actually, only Toyota is now producing commercially available fuel cell vehicle. But also their competitor is EV, plug-in hybrid. So there are another type of car. So try to come up with some group of FC. That's why they try to open up their actually patents. So of course, so this is basically the matter of private business. So always there are some strategy. Of private business don't give up their patent for free, just for free. There are some reasons why they do this. So you have to understand these kind of things. Can I come back to the question to Professor Chong previously?
Yeah.
So one thing, I think that the question was like sophisticated, service models based on IoT, Industry 4.0, is can it be, protected in IP system or not? Maybe so a patent, offices are prepared for these kind of things or not. I would say that for example, autonomous driving. Let's take a case. So this is a combination of various kind of technology, and patent is maybe I think most of the room here knows the patent system very well, and which have to be used for very specific type of technology with applications. Otherwise, too strong patent does harm, because for example, like we know the story about the business model patents bubble in early 21st century, and so if IP offices allows a kind of lousy patent in a very too broad claim, then that will cause some problem. Maybe that will encourage patent troll, right? So I think patent system, you need to have some right kind of size of strengthness. I think this is what USPTO is doing. So maybe I'm happy to hear, because 10, 20, I think 20 years ago, let's say, or 30 years ago, so US patent system, they introduced some pro-patent system, and then too strong patent, then just kind of coming back to the proper level, right? So I think this is good, and I think this should be actually followed by other countries' IP offices as well.
You have a counter opinion? Yeah.
Oh, no, I'd like to add to that. The US system is, whether the patent system allows a broad patent or a narrow patent, it ultimately gets enforced in litigation. And I think the problem the US system, one of the problems with the US system is these patents, whether the claims are broad or narrow, are getting litigated in district courts by very good attorneys that can present a very emotional case around the patents, and they're getting huge judgments. And I think one of the problems the US system is having is when you leave the enforcement of the patents to district courts and to litigators, it allows for the interpretation of the claims to almost anything. It becomes very broad. And I think that's, the US is actually, with the the U.S. passed the American Invents Act, which allowed for inter-parties review, which allows a company to attack or invalidate a patent at the USPTO. But I mean, outside of that, I would be aware for a developing patent system of not just the quality of the patents, but how does the patent actually get enforced? I think is very important.
Okay. The final question to everybody is the question about the MPE. In fourth industrial revolution, the role of MPE will be changed, and also regulation from each government should be changed. Would you please explain your opinion from Professor Wang?
I first share the experience in Taiwan. We have IP code 2, and the damage is very low. The attorney fee is very low. Therefore, MPE would not be interested. And there are a lot of MPE, they rush to Germany, if you review the case, because they have what we say, biphyrectic system. You can quickly get an injunction, and later on wait for 2 years to get to whether patent will be valid or not. And a similar system in China. So the new battlefield is in Germany and China. But in US, now after the TC Holland cases, now what they say is, for example, Taiwanese company, for the foreign company, they will still stay in Delaware or the same situation. But if the other company, they have the manufacturer side or the business side in US, the MPE can no longer sue a bunch of the defendant in the same court. They will increase their cost and their efforts, so they will diminish the power of the MPE. Of course, we have Japanese experts. I heard the MPE was lax, but Japanese companies sue a lot of foreign companies too. So I would say there are a lot of skills that if we reduce the damage we change some administration systems, MPE will be getting less and less. But however, I feel MPE is also a legal measure to monetize each patent, because MPE, including research institutes, universities, small entities. So pros and cons, it's hard to say. But I would say why there are more and more litigation now, because in old days, even your inventors in Pakistan, in some small countries, you respect their innovation, you respect their intelligence, you pay royalty. But now, if you don't sue people, they won't give you royalties. And the problem is because there are more and more software patents. In this phone, there could be thousands of patents, and the royalty gets so low, and it gets more complicated. With small improvement, amendment, you get a patent. So they get more and more problem now. And a lot of software that doesn't require manufacture operations. So the less investment, the entry barrier is low. That also causes the situation. But of course, big companies, they now have the alliances. They could have the insurance type of alliance. They could have a protection type of alliance. They also have the troll type of alliance. So it depends how you join these parties. That's my observation so far.
Thank you. Professor Motohashi, you have some opinion about MPE?
In Japan, I think many cases Japanese company are actually attacked by NPE, and there are not so many. Maybe Korean too. I don't know. But I think you have to be, particularly in this Industry 4.0 era, you have to be careful about the definition of NPE changing, because NPE used to be only in electronics, basically IT electronics. So non-practicing in the sense that non-practicing in manufacturing in some, electronics products, whatever. But because IoT change, everything is connected. So there are, of course, I don't know in a specific, cases, but I'm pretty much sure that the automotive company also got a lot of warning out of NPE. Because they use a lot of this electronics technology. and so internet kind of software, company, they are actually practicing in a software, industry, but they are not practicing in a automotive, industry. So can you call it as an NPE? So this is a, so all the, I think, so if the things are connected, everyone can become to be kind of NPE. So in the one of the, so in this case, NP definition is maybe you cannot do with cross-licensing. If you are practicing party, then you can cross-licensing somewhere. But even though some practicing entity in the electronics industry, but they don't do that in automotive. So if they try to, warn some automotive company, then this kind of things can become to be kind of NP because there are no working solution for cross-license, right? So maybe, that's why we have, particularly for the industry side, there are lots of worry, there are lots of discussions, policy discussions, practical discussions is going on. But it's really difficult to say this is a solution. Maybe one of the general actually conclusion out of this is you have to be careful about too strong patent. So in this case, so if this patent is too strong, something like a very general use patent, some very general kind of protocol data using some data, but could be applied for automotive, electronics, whatever, everything. So those kind of patents can be very, very, very strong and might be used as a NPE to attack maybe some social, not social, welfare gaining kind of businesses.
Thank you.
Well, in the United States, the MPE is a huge problem, and I think people are aware of it. If you look at the courts are trying to address it. So what Professor Wang was talking about, TC Heartland pretty much said that you could only sue a company where they're incorporated. So you couldn't, as an MPE, you couldn't sue Samsung in Texas because everybody loved to sue in Texas because that's where the damages were the largest. And this was the way of the courts to say, hey, you can't just sue wherever you want. So that was one way to try to handicap the MPE. Another is with the AIA and the inter partes review. But I think at the core of the problem is the cost analysis. Because for a US company to defend against an MPE, the costs are so high. And the US system doesn't have, we're not like the European system where if you win, you transfer the cost to the other party. It's very rare for US courts to do that. So in the US system, even though you win as a company against an MPE, you're still bearing the cost. And the costs are so high, I mean, we're talking multi-millions of dollars, and the cost to start the lawsuit is so cheap, right? Because you can file a federal lawsuit for $500-600, and if you have 2 or 3 attorneys that want to wage war against Samsung, it's very cost efficient for them to do that. And it becomes an economics thing where it's just so much cheaper for Samsung or any company to just pay the MPE, just pay them off, pay $500,000 and be done, and you never have to think about that particular MPE. Now the problem with that is it creates more MPEs. So we have a problem. In terms of the 4th generation, you have to think, what are the MPEs after and what do they get? And they get a royalty on your sales. So until the sales are large, there isn't a huge pool of money at the end. But there's just so much leverage that they can apply because of the cost of litigations.
오케이. 자, 그러면은 그 플로 질문 한 분도 없이 가면은 좀 섭섭하죠. 원래 시나리오는 질문이 없는 걸로 되어 있었습니다. 근데 제가 한두 분만 받도록 하겠습니다. 예, 질문 있으시면은 손 들어 주시죠. 없으세요? 질문을 이미 다 하셨나요? 그러면은 미리 들어온 질문을 제가 하나 얘기를 드리겠습니다. 예, 네. 예.
제가 맨날 느끼는 건데 우리나라에서는 남의 특허가 나오면은 그거를 같이 쓰자는 강행이 굉장히 많거든요. 거기에 대해서 한번 그 대만 중국 쪽이나 일본 쪽이나 미국 쪽에서 누가 그런 말 하면은 어떻게 그 답변할지 좀 알고 싶습니다. 그게 뭐하고 똑같냐면은 제가 그 이민하 교수님 오늘 저녁에 침대 좀 써도 될까요? 한 거하고 똑같은 것 같은데
예.
과연 어떻게 그런 발상이 나올 수 있고 거기에 대한 그 다른 국가 전문가들의 의견도 이제 궁금합니다.
예, MP를 방어하는 쪽에서 굉장히 유용한 전략이기도 하지만은 자 누구를 지목해서 질문해 주시죠.
세 분 다 앉아.
세 분 다. 그 시간이 될지는 모르겠습니다만, 예, 한 마디씩. 예. He wanted to ask to everybody, one of you.
Sharing patents, I think it's a I think you lose the incentives for companies to develop IP because as a new player, I can wait for something to develop and jump on top. So the R&D costs that go into developing, you create an incentive for people to free ride. So I think it'd be difficult.
I think AST, RPX or ASX is typical example of sharing the patent.
Yeah.
It is useful for protecting from the MP.
It's true, but you have to
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
in order to be a member
Yes,
of
yes,
RPX.
yes, some money. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, please.
I don't know for this patent sharing, but but there are also I think patent from different viewpoints. As a patent system is kind of becoming to be more and more harmonized internationally, and I don't know in detail, but something like a IP speedway or something like this. So something like a examination can be taking place in a jointly. So that will reduce the cost of the company which try to apply their patents to various kind of countries. From private sense, sharing is, doesn't make sense too much, very much, because there are reasons why the company apply their property rights.
My view is that I don't know whether you have heard of LOT, and it was led by Canon, Japanese company. And this group, these companies, of course, they may have membership, they may have some additional fee to buy more patents, protect each other. But the members share patents in the group. There are also many patent alliances that share patents each other. For members, free. For competitors, of course, it's not free. It's kind of alliance. They could be friends this period of time, and the next period of time they are no longer friends. For ANPAC, first is the first patent alliance. They passed 56 countries anti-competition. And later on, we have Technical Color, the French group. They spin off because they think they don't benefit enough. So I think that depends on the power of the group member. For example, the fuel cell card. If you want to build a future trend, because there are so many new source energy car, you need to share your patent, grab your alliance, get your friends. But once you become the leaders, their policy may change. So that's the new trend, new technology, emerging technology. Small companies, they did the same.
Okay, thank you. And the final question, 우리 권혁준 원장님께서 오늘 주최자지만 질문 또 마지막 질문을 장식하겠습니다. 예. 마이크 좀 준비해 주시겠어요? 예.
주최자는 아니고 저도 그냥 초청돼서 온 겁니다. 근데 프로페서 청한테 좀 여쭤보고 싶은데요. 지금 그 소프트웨어나 사실 데이터나 이런 것들이 이제 다른 테크놀로지하고 결합돼서 했을 때 섹션 101 범주에 포함되는 걸로 해석이 된다고 하더라도 앞으로 그런 부분이 빅데이터나 IoT가 많이 발전하면 할수록 AI나 컴퓨터에 의해서 상당히 많이 크리에이트 될 텐데 그런 것이 101 범주에 포함된다고 인정받기는 쉽지가 않을 것 같아요. 그럼 그 문제하고 그리고 그걸 법을 개정을 하거나 아니면 판례법을 뭐 그 스프링 코트에서 앞으로 뭐 이제 진보적으로 해석을 해서 그걸 바꾼다고 하더라도 그런 게 과연 바람직한 건지 예, 그런 부분에 대해서 좀 얘기를 듣고 싶은데.
If it's created by AI, so if the AI creates something, is it desirable to make that patentable? Wow, that's a tough question. I think yes. And the reason for that is I think if you create AI that's able to create intellectual property that's within the framework of the United States, then I don't see why you would, or how you would say that that should not be patentable. And I think that we're probably going to go that way as AI develops and AI is more like humans. I think there's just going to be inventions that will come out of AI, and I think it, at least to me, I don't see a way that you would separate that out as not being something that's inventive and that shouldn't apply under 101. The problem with the 101 in any U.S. statute is based on that current time of knowledge. So when the writers wrote it, they weren't thinking of AI. And it's a very tough question. So what should we do with that? And at least from my point of view, I think because a human being actually creates the AI and the software behind it, even though we can't patent the software of the AI, if there's inventive concepts that come out of it, I do believe that it makes sense to me that that would be patentable. I don't know if that answers your question.
예, 또 하실 얘기가 많으시겠지만은 또 마쳐야 될 시간이 됐습니다. 이제 1분 남았기 때문에 제가 1분간 얘기를 하고 마치겠습니다. 4차 산업혁명을 저는 현실과 가상의 융합이라고 얘기를 합니다. 융합 과정에는 데이터가 순환하고 있죠. 얼마 전에 구글이 미래의 전략으로서 하드웨어 더하기 인공지능 더하기 소프트웨어를 얘기했습니다. 같은 맥락일 것입니다. 그리고 오늘 세 분께서는 제조와 서비스가 융합하고 이제는 단일 기업에서 플랫폼 형태로 변화하고 있다. 다 동일한 맥락일 겁니다. 그래서 고객에 대해서 엔드-투-엔드의 가치를 창출하는 4차 산업혁명에서 이제 IP는 새로운 차원으로 진입하고 있는 건 틀림없어 보입니다. 오늘 이 시간이 약간이라도 도움이 됐길 바라면서 이것으로 마치도록 하겠습니다. 예, 감사합니다.